Good evening and thank you for joining us. The final Crown witness has wrapped up his testimony at the Hobbs-Voss extortion trial.
Crown Attorney Peter Keane will wrap up his case tomorrow morning before the defense begins laying out its side of the argument. And while lawyer Brian Greenspan won't confirm that Keith Hobbs will take the stand, the defense is expected to call witnesses on Wednesday. Ryan Bonazzo has more from day 11 of the trial.
It was a surprisingly brief cross-examination of OPP Detective Inspector Martin Graham. He was the lead investigator in the case against the three accused and final Crown witness in this trial. Brian Greenspan, the lawyer for Keith and Marissa Hobbs, had no questions for Graham, despite previously expressing concern about how his investigation unfolded. Perhaps those concerns will be made more clear during closing arguments. Meanwhile, George Joseph, lawyer for Mary Voss, questioned Graham for less than 10 minutes. Joseph established that while Graham has conducted many types of investigations, he had never investigated an extortion case before this one. Joseph also pointed to an imbalanced power dynamic between the alleged victim and Mary Voss and tried to clear up an inconsistency in Voss's statement to police. She said it was the victim in a phone call who first told Voss that an agreement had been struck to buy her a house. Graham checked the phone records and testified that no call had been placed at the indicated time, but Joseph pointed to a phone call earlier in the day during which that conversation may have taken place. The Crown will close its case on Wednesday morning. The defense will begin its arguments after that. Ryan Bonazzo, TVT News.
There is some mystery tonight surrounding the status of Thunder Bay Fire Chief John Hay. It comes following calls to our newsroom indicating that the chief is no longer on the job. City Manager Norm Gale will only say that Hay is, quote, out of the office. Members of City Council we contacted all referred us back to the City Manager. Chief Hay also declined to return our phone calls. It's believed that Deputy Fire Chief Greg Hankio has assumed Hay's duties on an interim basis.
Thunder Bay Police have now laid charges in connection with a fatal auto-pedestrian collision which claimed the life of a 49-year-old woman. It happened on the night of October 17th on Memorial Avenue near 10th Avenue. Police say the woman was in a wheelchair crossing a southbound turning lane when she fell onto the street. A male companion tried to help her get up, but before he could, she was struck by a southbound minivan. The victim was attended to by police and first responders and was then taken to hospital where she died from her injuries. The driver remained at the scene, as did several eyewitnesses. 28-year-old Renee Jenny Graves has now been charged with dangerous driving causing death, along with 2 counts of breach of probation. Graves appeared in bail court yesterday and was released until her next court date.
Thunder Bay OPP and the Provincial Coroner's Office continue to investigate that fatal head-on collision between 2 transport trucks west of Thunder Bay. The crash happened around 7 o'clock Sunday night on Highway 17, just west of Wraith. Both vehicles were engulfed in flames, and the 2 drivers were pronounced dead at the scene. The collision forced the closure of the roadway for more than 24 hours, and it reopened at around 10:30 last night. The OPP say their technical collision investigators are still trying to determine the cause. Meanwhile, the presiding coroner is expected to take some time to positively identify the victims, and the OPP still isn't sure if there were any other occupants in the 2 rigs.
City consultants attended last night's City Council meeting to outline the first phase of Thunder Bay's independent program and service review. The study was the first of its kind in decades and identified specific divisions which need the most improvement. Tyler Kelleher has the story.
For the first time in 20 years, Thunder Bay's city services are under assessment.
This is, of course, in the context of significant financial pressure placed upon you and the ratepayer in the city of Thunder Bay, and external factors such as government funding and slow growth in the city of Thunder Bay.
Advising firm Grant Thornton conducted the independent study on the more than 140 services offered by the city, singling out a dozen areas, including human resources, childcare, and recreation for further review to provide recommendations to improve program efficiency and meeting the needs of residents and local businesses. Some council members were satisfied with the effort.
Very interesting to read. You guys really went through the organization, and I appreciate that this is a first pass.
I'm pleasantly surprised by how some of my ideas and thoughts are reflected in this document.
Others were far from impressed.
I'm hoping to see specific options that you're giving us. If I don't know what you're talking about, then it's not a good report in my point of view.
Council will decide on December 16th if the suggested divisions will undergo a final review, which will be completed by June of next year. Also on Monday, city management notified council of a potential snag in the construction of the Carrick and Vickers Corridor Bridge. Administration explained the steps needed to ensure a secure foundation could severely damage a nearby sanitary sewer line, adding unforeseen costs to an already $1.6 million project.
If there's very large risks and very large costs involved, does it not make sense that we look at alternatives at this point in time?
The latest administrative report advised stretching construction over 2 years to monitor the structure and minimize risk of damage. Another report will be presented to council in February. Tyler Kelleher, TBT News.
The City of Thunder Bay has posted a request for proposals for its next municipal recycling contract. The current deal with GFL Environmental expires in June of next year. GFL bought out Recool Canada in 2016 and assumed its contract with the city at that time. Over the past 5 years, the city's recycled close to 7,000 metric tons of material annually and rising. Jason Sherband, manager of solid waste and recycling for the city, says a main hope for this new contract will be the ability to increase the type of goods being recycled and allow people to turn in more plastics. He acknowledges that new innovation from the prospective contractors is encouraged.
Anytime you go back out to the market, it allows proponents that are bidding to present any innovative ways, different ways of doing things, right? And so, we look forward to evaluating what those options are as well. And again, you're always vetting that against cost, operational adaptability, and provincial legislation, and making sure that everything ties in.
The proposed new contract will run for 7 years. Total cost of collecting and processing as well as operating recycling depots in the city is currently $2.4 million annually. The city and its contractors split the revenue from the sale of recycled material on a 50-50 basis.
The town council in Red Rock has appointed a new member following the death of Councillor Larry Woods last month. Woods was diagnosed with cancer earlier this year and passed away November 19th at age 72. He was very active within the community prior to being elected to council in 2018. Woods served on several boards and committees, including the Nipigon Watershed Advisory Committee and the Fire Department. During last night's meeting, after declaring Woods' seat vacant, Red Rock Council decided to appoint Cam Todesco to fill the seat. He was the next runner-up during the 2018 election. Todesco will be sworn in at the next council meeting on the 16th.
North Star Air says there were no injuries in a Tuesday morning incident involving one of its aircraft near Sachigo Lake. A statement from the company says the incident involved one of its BT-67 cargo aircraft with 2 crew members aboard. No other details have been released on the nature of the mishap. The Transportation Safety Board and Transport Canada have both been notified and are investigating. Sachigo Lake is located about 600 kilometers north of Thunder Bay.
Ontario high school teachers are preparing to walk off the job. Negotiations are ongoing this evening to avert the job action, but with hours left before the deadline, the union says they are still very far apart from provincial negotiators. Colin DeMello has more.
With public high school teachers on the verge of walking off the job, last-minute talks to avert a one-day strike are taking place at a downtown Toronto hotel. But even the union admits things are not looking good.
We'll keep trying, but so far, given the government's positions, things are not looking good.
Teachers united will never be divided.
Teachers launched a Work to Rule campaign 1 week ago after talks with the government sputtered. After just a few days, the union decided to escalate, and teachers have been preparing ever since, creating signs for the picket line, holding meetings for strike captains, even baking sustenance cookies for teachers, as they prepare for a one-day province-wide walkout.
I don't trivialize one day. One day is unacceptable. It is a day out of class where they should be learning in a safe environment.
The one-day strike would shut down all public high schools province-wide, and in some regions, elementary schools would be affected as well.
I fully appreciate, as a parent myself, that this is disruptive and creates anxiety for parents and for students. But if we allow this government to continue its short-sighted cuts and damage the quality of education, the long-term disruption, the long-term hit on our students is going to be a lot worse.
But the Ford government says if anyone's to blame, it should be the unions, which they say have been unreasonable.
We have continuously made moves from classroom sizes to online learning and a variety of other new investments we've put into the classroom, and no reasonable reciprocity has been matched by the other side.
Both sides have until 11:59 tonight to reach a deal. Colin DeMello, CTV News.
A big gathering is underway in Ottawa with people coming together for the First Nations Special Assembly. And an issue being faced by a Northwestern Ontario First Nation is among the leading concerns. The group will spend the next 3 days discussing ways to harmonize Canada's laws with the UN's Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. At the top of the agenda is construction of a care facility for victims of mercury poisoning in Grassy Narrows. While the Liberals have promised to build the facility and clean up the region's drinking water, First Nations Assembly National Chief Perry Bellegarde says both federal and provincial leaders need to move faster.
You can't heal from mercury poisoning, and it has dreadful impacts on young people, on elders, on women, the whole community. And so there was a call to get this done, the center built, this mercury care home built. And so we're going to do all we can to make sure that that happens. And there's both levels of government in play here as well. It's not just the federal government. The Ontario government as well has a role to play in terms of cleanup, in terms of supporting the community. And so we're going to call on both levels of government to work together and get this done as soon as possible. 40, 50 years is way too long.
More people in Ontario with full and part-time jobs are relying on food banks to put food on their tables. The organization overseeing the province's food banks says the number of users with jobs has gone up 27% over the past 3 years. 1/3 of food bank users are children under 18, an increase of more than 4%. The organization is calling on the government to significantly reform social assistance programs and increase funding for the provincial child benefit.
After Black Friday shopping spree, local charities are hoping city residents will now embrace Giving Tuesday. And several Thunder Bay organizations were getting in on the action today. At the Regional Health Sciences Centre, the 4th annual Giving Tuesday campaign was underway. Their goal was to raise $40,000, enough to purchase 2 instrument trays for use in heart surgeries. Philanthropy officer Lindsay Doran says previous Giving Tuesday campaigns exceeded their goals, funding the purchase of badly needed equipment like defibrillators and ultrasounds.
It's huge that we can buy these pieces of equipment for our hospital in just one day of fundraising. Like, the community can give that much in just one day, and these tools will change so many lives. And to think that that all happened in 24 hours is really awesome.
Meanwhile, the Salvation Army was hoping to see a little extra money in their Christmas kettles during Giving Tuesday. They're now set up inside all 3 local LCBOs, along with many big box stores and grocers. The goal is to raise $220,000 by Christmas Eve.
Local school kids are getting the chance to speak to Santa Claus this week, thanks to Radio Santa event put on by the Canadian Armed Forces 38th Signal Regiment 3 Squadron. The military union was at Westmount School this morning, offering students a chance to communicate directly with Santa at the North Pole via a military radio station. This annual event has been running for more than 10 years, and student support staffers says it's a day kids look forward to.
It's tremendous. The students really get excited about this event. We plan it a couple weeks out with the assistance of 3 Squadron, and the kids really love it.
This is probably the one thing I look forward to every year. This is probably one of the most rewarding experiences of my career, just getting to come in and seeing how much joy we bring to the children every year. It's pretty amazing.
Were you wondering if you were on the list? What did he say about the naughty list?
No, I'm not on the naughty list.
That's what Santa said? Nice.
The 3 Squadron will be out and about all week, bringing Radio Santa to various schools throughout Thunder Bay. And A Thunder Bay woman is a Sorry about that. So a Thunder Bay woman is $250,000 richer thanks to OLG's instant cash out multiplier game. 48-year-old Andrea Dunning says she was in disbelief when she saw she had won and had to have 3 other people look at the ticket to confirm her good fortune. The early childhood educator calls the windfall life-changing and says she'll use the money to pay off her mortgage and install a hot tub. The winning ticket was purchased at Cressman's North End Variety on Shunya Street.
Go back to that